join us? Hello, everyone on Facebook. Live on Facebook and Zoom, right? So, hello everyone. I'm 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗗𝗶𝗴𝗶𝘁, your host for episode 3 of Professional Development Series. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. So it's 4 p.m. right now, and with us today is our very esteemed panelist, Miss Juliana. She is joining us from Washington. And we have Mr. Tarun. He is joining us from Hyderabad, India. So we are very glad to have these panelists from Coursera team. And the objective, the overall objective behind this session is to introduce you to the concept of digital accountant. Coursera is the world's leading online learning platform that is providing thousands of courses, and hundreds and thousands of users have benefited from this platform. So we are very pleased to have our panelists. I'll just briefly introduce Ms. Juliana. Ms. Juliana is a skills transformation consultant at Coursera, where she advises universities and corporations on the skills they need to invest in for the future. She previously worked at the International Finance Corporation, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group, evaluating investments in higher education institutions and edtech startups, and overseeing a portfolio of higher education institutions to strengthen their academic and business operations. She recently co-designed an advisory product to support universities to shape and finance digital transformation strategies. She's an alumnus of Harvard University. Thank you very much, Ms. Juliana, for joining us from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. 𝗵𝗲, for that nice introduction. And hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here with you this morning. It's 7 a.m. for me. So I'm having a fresh start. So if it's okay with you, I'm happy to share my screen to project the slides.
We also have Mr. Tarun. He's an enterprise director at Coursera, and he's based in Hyderabad, India. Hello, Mr. Tarun.
Thank you, Mr. 𝗵𝗲, and absolute pleasure to be here. I look forward to learning from the session and sharing a few bits of information with everyone.
Great, great. So without any further delay, we would like to have an idea about the digital accountant and how the concept has evolved over the years. And just over to you, Ms. Juliana.
Great, thank you. Let me project my screen, and I would like to verify that you can see my slides.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Well, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by my colleagues. So Tarun will be part of the Q&A, and we're both of us excited to engage in a conversation with all panelists. And as Mr. 𝗵𝗲 was saying, we'd like to discuss today the concept of the digital accounting in the context of the changes that we're observing from a Coursera point of view, but that are perceptible to all of us. And I'd like to start with a quick background about myself. As Mr. 𝗵𝗲 was saying in the introduction, I come from a finance world. I have actually formal training in finance, but my career has taken me in many different directions. I've worked in consulting, I've worked at the World Bank in policy, I've worked at the International Finance Corporation in investments, and now I'm at Coursera working in education technology. And I hope this can illustrate to you the different shifts and turns that one's career can take, even if one has formal training on a core field like finance. And for me, what has allowed a lot of these changes is one, indeed, the strength of the core foundation that I received in my university studies, but also the training that I've taken along the way and the learning opportunities that I've taken in my different roles, which have enabled me to discover new opportunities, new very exciting roles and ways to contribute to the field. But that would have not been possible without constant upskilling. And that's what I would love to discuss with you today. So I'd like to start with a bit of context in terms of the different forces of disruption that we're seeing in the market. And I'm sure you've felt these directly, but we've collectively experienced COVID-19 and the impact this has had in our lives and in industries around the world. And COVID is only augmenting forces that were already underway. Companies across industries have been already adapting technology, and this had been already changing jobs, skills, and tasks, and will continue to do that. But in the context of this unprecedented situation we're all facing, it is very likely that we're going to be in a scenario where businesses accelerate digitalization, and this will have an impact on the core skills that will be demanded from us professionals going forward. So a couple of statistics that I would like to highlight from this slide are that the World Economic Forum predicts that between 85 and 100 million roles will be displaced in the next 5 years. And this means that, and those are likely to be those that are more likely to be automated and to be repetitive. And so we need to think then how are we going to channel our work if some of the tasks that are currently performed will be automated. And also, even if roles don't completely get automated, which will be the vast majority of them, it is very likely that a big proportion of the skills involved in our day-to-day jobs, and that is around 40%, would change by 2025. So this means that we'll have to constantly upgrade our skills because the shelf life of a technical skill is only shrinking, not increasing. It could be as short as 2 years. So we have to think of ways of staying relevant in our day-to-day work. So on to the next slide. With this slide, what I'm hoping is to take a bit of a step back and from a macro perspective, see the benefits of skilling. And so it's intuitive to all of us that skills are essential to quality and sustainable employment. But this scatter plot shows in very concrete terms that there's a strong correlation in between labor force participation in the labor market and high skill proficiency. And this is very important to countries where there's high informality, because we all aspire to have very long, formal and stable jobs. And we know that the more upskilled is a country, the more chances are that there's greater formalization in the labor market. And to put it in concrete terms, in the example of Switzerland and Greece, Switzerland is a country where the average skill proficiency is on the high side, is around 98%. That's on the right-hand side of this graph along the x-axis, and in turn has a correlation with the labor force participation of 84%. Conversely, a country like Greece has an average skill proficiency of around 56 and a labor force participation of 68, much lower than that is for Switzerland. And this is an analysis that we were able to do with our own data in a report published last year called the Global Skills Index at Coursera. And we've complemented this data with World Bank data, and we're able to come up with these results. Another perspective is the relationship between skill proficiency and income inequality. We know that both the countries that, and this is true for both developed and developing countries, that excel in critical skills see lower income inequality. This negative correlation means that the more upskilled is a country, and this is especially true for developing countries, the more likely we see reduced levels of inequality. So for example, in Brazil, the share of income held by the top 10% of the population is 42%, and the average skill proficiency is 30%.
Ms. Juliana,
yes?
Can you full screen your slide?
Is it not?
It might increase the visibility. It's good right now, but it's going to improve it. This is good. This is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Looks good. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Juliana, you're mute, probably mute right now. And he can't hear you. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now better.
Okay. Okay. So I was telling you about well, anyway, to round up my point, we see a negative correlation between skill proficiency and, sorry, now I don't see you. I guess that's okay. No. Okay. We see that the more countries invest in upskilling, the lower income inequality we tend to see. And this is best illustrated in this data from Brazil, where the top 10% of the population has around 40% of income, and the average skill proficiency is around 30%, whereas in the United States, the share of income held by the top 10% is 31%, and the average skill proficiency is higher at 58%, higher than Brazil. So this shows that there's very tangible benefits from upskilling, both in terms of labor force participation and inequality.
Can you ask a question?
Sure.
Can I ask a question from last slide?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It says a country's skill proficiency is negatively associated with the fraction of income held by the top 10%. What does it mean? Can you explain that?
It means that the more, the higher proficiency levels that we see in aggregate in a country across domains, based on the data we collect, we see that this relates to a lower proportion of income held by the top 10% of the population. So for example, I was telling you that in the data for Brazil, the top 10% of the population hold 42% of total income in Brazil, right? And then the average skill proficiency is around 30%, so it's not on the high side. A country like the United States, where the average skill proficiency is higher compared to Brazil, it's 58%, twice as much as most, almost twice as much. The top 10% of the population has less of an income, proportionally speaking, compared to the country. It's 31% compared to, say, Brazil, where the top 10 holds 42%. And this is a correlation. So this is, we're taking our own skill proficiency data and relating it to the inequality data we get from the World Bank.
What you mean is, if you're less proficient in skills, overall a nation is less proficient in skills, that results probably, or that has a relationship, at least that has a relationship with income inequality.
Exactly.
All right. All right.
Yeah. So we start getting a bit more into the nuts and bolts, into how is this impacting professionals in the finance and accounting field. So this is a survey conducted by the Association of Chartered Certified Consultants last year. And they're asking executives in this field, how relevant do they consider digital skills to be for accountants in the finance industry, for professionals in the finance industry? And without any doubt, you see that countries of different regions, including the United Kingdom, China, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Brazil, and Russia, they all agree overwhelmingly that digital skills are likely to be very important in the future of the finance and accounting industry, right? So this is pointing us in the direction of how does a profession need to continue to evolve to keep up with the changes that we're seeing in the industry. And what are some of those changes that we're gonna be observing? there are many. So here are 4 forces that we see are transforming the workplace, not only for the finance industry, but across the board. But here are some examples on how we can think of it from a finance and accounting point of view. There's a greater focus on digital customer experience, right? This is true for the new players in the field, like the fintech companies that are coming into the financial services world, that are establishing a competitive advantage by focusing incessantly on serving the needs of their customers much better than the incumbent banks have been doing up until now. In my region of the world, there's this case study of a bank called Nubank, which is a technology company that provides financial services. That's how they sell themselves. And one of their main competitive advantages is really making a difference in the customer experience. And this results in both efficiencies from an operational point of view. An example of this is the use of chatbots and virtual assistants and managing customer interactions. But this also results in greater use of data and analytics that companies can use, or the banks or financial services companies can do, to draw insights and better understand their customers and drive strategy going forward. There's also the forces of automation and how companies are the financial services industry is introducing new technologies such as blockchain that allows for faster and more efficient transactions. But also this technology will allow for a complete restructuring of the industry going forward, right? And will also bring in new data and generate new shifts for the profession. Then, as I was telling you, this digital business models will change, and accounting and finance professionals will work in for example, not just in a traditional retail company, or and more likely now they will be working in companies like e-commerce marketplaces that are having a complete different business model of the way commerce has traditionally operated. And this is also true for people working in government, as they're automating, for example, tax collection, or across the board industries that are going into cloud technology platforms to make more efficient use of data. And this will allow to draw more meaningful insights and generate a need for advanced analytics to see these tools and this data mean a lot, but they mean very little unless people can make sense of them, professionals like us, to draw real-time insights and to use tools for data visualization to tell compelling stories from which to make business decisions. So these are only a few of the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace of tomorrow, and that really inform what will likely be the professional that we should be in the future. And this is one of our favorite slides here at Coursera, in terms of taking a step back to think, what is the profile of a professional that is expected to be in highest demand in the future? So I'd like to start with a visual on the left-hand side of the slide that speaks about the I-shape disciplinary approach of a worker. So what does that mean? Traditionally, a professional was expected to have depth on a core field of expertise. In this case, let's say a professional in accounting, in finance, and that was good enough to be very successful in the marketplace. In the last 10 years, this shifted to not, and the depth of the expertise in one field was not enough, and it was demanded that same professional had the ability to interact with professionals from other fields and be able to have a multidisciplinary approach to apply their own expertise, right? So for example, how do I apply my core skills in finance to work in a government setting, or to work in a particular industry, like for example, telecommunications, and how do I translate my skills to be able to have a conversation with professionals from different roles. And this was the trend most prevalent in the last 10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
And now what is shifting, and I guess we're still in that world today.
Most of us are there actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still here. But this is very quickly going to change now. As more and more, what will be asked from us is to be more X-shaped professionals. And what does the X-shaped professional mean? It still means we have to have depth in our field. It also means that we'll have to be able to interact with professionals from other disciplines, but also we will be asked to have two more characteristics. One, have depth on other different fields that are not the core expertise we were trained for. And we will also be asked to interact more with technology and data tools. And we know that it might be humanly impossible for us to be experts on different fields at the same time and to make sense of vast amounts of data. And this is exactly where the technology comes in. We can take advantage and leverage all these data tools to be able to quickly get the scope of fields that are not core to our expertise. So for example, in statistics, I may not need to be a trained advanced statistician. I may be well enough to have basic conversant understanding of statistics, but leverage data tools to provide me with insights of large data sets to make sense of meaning and draw the insights that I need to make a business decision. And also I need to be able to understand and manage data tools to be able to get those insights and to judge whether the data that's been given to me makes sense or not, and whether I can really use it to drive decision making going forward. And so this is a fundamental shift on how we think of our professions, and is going to push us to learn other skills that had not been core to our fields up until now, right? And this is where the digital skills start coming in.
So I think, would it be a good idea to get some audience questions here? Because, you know, these are two things that you have mentioned. First of all, I'd like to engage audience with how many of you have, whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom, how many of you have already taken some courses other than finance or accounting? So if you have taken any course in the last 3 or 4 years, so you can just type your the name of the course that you have taken. It could be related to data analytics or some sort of skills related to statistics or some other skills that you have taken that those are relevant to your own industry or discipline. So you can just start typing and mentioning in chat whether you're on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, and also if you're on Facebook, you can just type in the comment section. We'd like to know how many of you have been taking some other courses other than finance and accounting. Of course, we understand that you're either a qualified chartered accountant, or you're as a student, you are up to getting that qualification. So we have a couple of responses here. Currently taking data-driven decision-making from Coursera, sponsored by PwC. Wonderful. Okay, becoming a data analyst, 𝗧𝗵𝗶 is saying. A learning path by LinkedIn Learning. So, great. So we'd like to know more from you guys. Project management courses, data skills, data camp. Wonderful. Excellent. That's great. So if anyone, if you have any queries, you can always type on the group chat as well as write on the comment section. I'm going to be taking those queries. If you have any query right now, so we have a question here for senior finance professional: what tech skills are required? 𝗬𝗵𝗶 has asked this question. Probably if this is coming in the upcoming slides, right, Juliana?
Yes. Yes. Why don't we give it a couple more, a few more seconds to see if some other examples come in. I find this very interesting. Otherwise, I'm happy to continue, but I would really love to hear more. What are the skills that you're upskilling on? Yeah.
Let me get some responses from Facebook as well. So I'm going to just open responses. cloud computing, data analytics. So people are mostly talking about data visualization, data analytics. Nayab is saying CISA, data science. Abid Raza is saying Python programming. Saad Heather is doing something in blockchain. Salman Khan is doing operations and supply chain management. Nayab ERP. So we have Jawad taking some course on supply chain, ERP, and SAP. Great. So I think if we just plot this data, so a lot of people are doing something data visualization, data analytics, and probably in something in ERP or SAP. As you know, the majority of responses are coming. RPA is somebody has also mentioned. Mr. Jawad has also mentioned RPA. So yeah.
And we have here in the chat somebody saying that skills of tomorrow may include also cloud technology, artificial intelligence, etc. So emerging technologies, that's another field that we see here represented. Introduction of business intelligence.
Business intelligence.
All great answers. It's so interesting. And in fact, this relates really well with the slide that I have next in my deck. So let me continue. So we've heard a lot. We saw a lot of responses related to the data science field, business field, and you know, emerging technologies. And this plots very well with what we're observing at Coursera. So at Coursera, we have data from over 80 million learners, and we have mapped over 80,000 skills to form our taxonomy. And so last year we ran a report where we saw, we wanted to see what are the most popular course domains in our of learners in our database. And we have 11 domains that we track in a systematic way. And the 3 most popular by far were courses in the domains of data science, business, and computer science, all of which have been represented in the many answers that we got from participants, right? And why do we think this is the case, that we have these 3 big domains represented? Because this happened to be the backbone of the 4th industrial revolution, right? So specifically for the finance profession, I think that the core skills are fundamental, will continue to be very important going forward, but more will be asked to speak the language of data and draw insights from this data, the more data that we've collected, but also speak the language of business and come with this insights and this knowledge on finance to inform strategic business decisions going forward, and to also interact with software tools about this. So why don't we dive deep into some of the skills that we at Coursera see are most relevant for professionals in this field. So the first one we wanted to highlight is data and storytelling. This is a methodology for communicating impactful and compelling narratives with large and complex data sets. So it enables us telling stories through very simplified visual elements. And the key is to identify trends and patterns or outliers that we can use to make business decisions. And traditionally, it's data analysts, business analysts, operation analysts who've possessed more robust skills in this domain. But in the last year, we've seen a dramatic increase of over 200% of year-on-year growth on enrollments in courses in data storytelling. So I'd love to hear from participants if this is something that they've themselves been taking in their courses, that they agree it's important, and you know, whether they've already engaged with this skill. We think it's very important to build the skill set on this domain because of the increasing amount of data that we're going to see and across industries and in the finance world. And it is very important that we can interact with this data, make sense of it, and extrapolate meaning. And so there are many tools that are available in the market, including Tableau or ClickView. However, you still need, as I was telling you earlier, a very skilled professional to leverage insights. So I'd love to hear from people if this is something in the chat that they've started learning. If not, then I highly encourage you to do so. And then while the responses come in, we can go on into the next other skill that we wanted to highlight today. And that is a skill that comes more from the business world. And it's a skill of project management. So I was telling you, the more we pivot or like move away from just application of core finance and accounting skills, we also are asked to interact with business leaders, so often ask as business leaders, behave as business leaders. And this involves often managing complex projects. And to do that, we need to have not only technical competencies, but we need to have leadership skills, communication skills, and be able to adapt quickly. And this is going to be a skill that gives us a professional competitive advantage the more rapidly our world of work changes. This skill has usually been managed by program managers, product managers, and consultants that are, and it's also, involves the use of Excel to manage projects and keep track of the different inputs and outputs in a project. But overall, we've seen great growth in the demand for courses that work out this skill. So I'm very curious to know why, also if if the audience has engaged with this skill and if they agree that this is going to be important going forward. This is a quote that I wanted to bring up from the CFO of a large medical company, and we're going to read it for you. We're living in a time where there will be a new type of professional, a digital accountant, who understands how to process data as an IT professional and then analyze it as a finance professional so that they can give a solution to the general manager to improve the business. And what we hope to illustrate through this quote is the intersection of two fields. So the new type of professional will be able to understand how to process data and act in many ways as a data and IT professional, but do this in the context of finance. And so this shows that it's not one way or another. It's not a binary world anymore. Our world is increasingly cross-functional. And again, I want you to remember this notion of the X-shaped professional that requires us to get outside of the traditional boundaries. And it's actually a very exciting world because these are really exciting and happening fields. And so really try to differentiate ourselves from others in the market by building from the core discipline that we've been trained on to expand into other fields. The other quote that I wanted to bring you is this one from a professor of accounting at Centennial College in Canada that speaks about, in many ways, the fact of being pragmatic. So pushing outside of our boundary to be conversant in digital and technology skills doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be the expert on that field and do the heavy lifting and the hard work of understanding those worlds as if you had been trained originally on those. Fortunately, there's a lot of tools now that can do that for us, and we can always work cross-functionally with specialists on those fields. But we have to be able to ask questions around data, to make decisions, to add value to the organization, and to have judgment into whether we can trust the data and how to best use it. And this is a very important notion. And as I'm close to wrapping up, the third concept that I want to leave you with is that the world of work is changing rapidly, and that the requirements that there will be for our jobs today will continue to change. So learning today is going to serve us very well now, but will soon, in a few years, have to again. I'm looking for the right word, But this is a lifelong learning journey. We use that expression a lot, but learning needs to happen throughout our professional lives because businesses change rapidly, technology change rapidly, and we have to be able to respond quickly by upgrading our skills at the same pace. So at this point, I'd love to ask the audience if these messages resonate, and how do you think Pakistan fares in business, technology, and data science skills? Would love to hear in the chat.
So do you want us to respond? Do you want the audience to respond in terms of what?
In terms of, I have like perceptions of the average skill proficiency of Pakistan on these 3 domains, say compared to other countries.
So we're like in terms of percentage or what?
Yeah, percentage, good or bad, can be better.
Low on par,
high.
Yeah, on ranking, top, medium, high.
Low.
So let's see how people perceive it, and how, yeah, even qualitative comments would be helpful. Great.
Yeah, even from their experience, are they on a day-to-day basis engaged in this type of skills? Are their employers asking for them? And do their peers have these skills?
So I'll just begin reading out some of the comments. So a couple of people are saying, Salim Saab has said slow. I couldn't find a course compared to a recent one from ICAP. Would love to know if there is one. I couldn't find a course focused for accountants compared to a recent one from ICW. Would love to know if there is one. I think there are lots of courses that I've also looked at Coursera. So what exactly do you want something, a course in a course which is focused for accountants? Because I myself I've already looked at a lot of courses in Coursera that are basically for data analytics, and for accountants there are courses like finance for non-finance as well, for treasury as well. So what are the courses that you are looking for, Umar? For us, very low. In fact, I would say emerging, medium. Mahmood Saab says medium. Data science and the C, how can improve our skill? So we'll ask this question. Business, technology, and data science, medium. Khayam is saying, are short courses on Coursera or other platforms are sufficient to upskill, or are these basic level of courses while they encourage to opt for certification classroom education? This is a very good question, actually.
Can you, okay.
So are these short courses on Coursera or other platforms sufficient to upskill, or are these basic level of courses where they encourage to opt for certification, classroom education, are these at the introductory or beginner level, or they are sufficient? So this is a very good question.
Yeah. Why don't I start answering that?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I agree that that's a very important point. So the answer is there is a range, right? This is one of the affordances we have right now with stackable modular online learning. So in the Coursera platform, you have courses that are catering to the very basic skills across the 3 fields, but that evolve to intermediate and advanced levels. And so what we do at Coursera is to take this wide range of courses and help develop customized pathways that combine skills on these different domains to serve the needs of professionals in the specific field, right? So you may overlay courses in an emerging technology with some courses on, for those that need it, basic core skills, and add some, more advanced courses. So for example, how does the blockchain technology impact the finance profession, right? And add to this some very hands-on data analytics course to get people conversant and able in the use of, say, Python or R to use data, and then how do you apply this to the finance profession? So it is a combination of skills that we try to do by establishing these learning journeys, and I'm going to show you an example in just a minute. But the answer is that this is one of the beautiful things that you can do with a platform like Coursera, is that you have the wide range of possibilities available for people that would like to start at the basic level, but then you can build a learning program that aggregates and takes you to the more advanced levels of proficiency through a platform like Coursera. And then we have also different levels of certification. You have standalone courses, but you have then the specializations that help you build mastery in a certain concept that can, take you to this more advanced level. I see you about to ask me a question. So I want to make sure I hear you. If I give you the word, if you want to speak. No? Okay. So let's carry on. And
yeah, I want to ask a question here,
okay.
And that's relevant to what 𝗂𝗵𝗲 asked. The question is, do all of us need that kind of expertise that probably a practitioner needs to have, or there could be varying degrees of expertise that we need? Because all of us do not are not engaged at the field level, at the ground level. So all of us need that level of skill. And do you have courses for example, if I'm somebody at a very senior position and I want to engage with the course on data analytics, but of course I'm not going to do the handwork in terms of churning out data and making some sort of slides and presentations. So do you have courses for all of these different categories of people who are actually going to perform those tasks, people who are actually going to lead those tasks, lead those people who are doing those tasks?
Yes, Mr. Badami, that's an excellent question. And the answer is yes. We recognize that for different roles, levels of seniority, there are different types of specialties and emphases with which you need to engage with these new skills. And so I'll tell you, we have at Coursera a product called the Academies that is sort of a total learning solution to build a professional's profile in, say, proficiency for data science skills. So we have a data science academy to help build up that skill set, thinking of the end goal of this. So do I want to be a data leader at the end of this? Or do I want to be a data analyst at the end of this learning experience? Or do I want to be a data scientist? And so it's a role-based learning experience for which we've charted out learning pathways and paths of courses that will take you there. And there's other technical details about the solution, but I'll put those in on the side for a second to answer your question. And this academy also embodies this hierarchy of learning that you were alluding to, and recognizes that, say, all of us should at the minimum be able to speak the language of data.
Yes.
And be able to be conversant and to understand what data is, how do we interact with it, how do we make meaning of it. And I would argue that every single professional needs to have that basic level of literacy with data. But then you also have the specialist. And if you already had somebody that was an engineer, or this takes us outside for a second of the accounting and finance profession, but to illustrate and to answer your question, then if you have a person that was already, say, a data scientist or data engineer, and these people need to update their skills constantly to understand the most recent tools and the most recent techniques and methodologies. You need to upskill them to go even deeper in a field, right? And arguably, professionals in the accounting and finance profession, arguably, it's a big word because there might be exceptions, may not need to go in as much depth in any of these fields, because that's what the core specialists are for. but we all need to be conversant, and we are all, depending on our comfort level and interest, can get even deeper there. And I argue those would be very powerful combinations. If one is very strong in finance and accounting and is very good in the use of data and analysis. And then the third level of hierarchy that I want to emphasize is the reskilling. So you have people that that would like to make career pivots and changes and want to move from a role in, say, basic sales, or let's say even accounting for the sake of example, and go into being a data scientist. And if you have the interest, the skill, the time, and want to change that role, and let's say engage in data science from a finance and accounting point of view, I would argue those roles will be in high demand in the future. And there's a different learning journey you need to take from that, but those shifts are conceivable in today's world. So I hope I've answered your question. And I guess I'll just say that for data leaders that we've been, for leaders in the finance and accounting world, indeed, you may not need to go into the nitty gritty of specific tool, but you now will manage teams that will have to do that. And you will be able to draw on those massive amounts of data to draw insights to drive business in the future. And that definitely poses the need to develop this conversancy on data, analytics and tools, for which we also have solutions. So I hope I've answered your question, but this is how there's a flavor for everyone pretty much.
I think you do have that sort of a filter that gives you the information that what courses are there for senior professionals in a particular area like data science, and what courses are there for like middle level or junior level professionals, right?
Yes, and we can share with those with you later.
Perfect.
In
fact, if I may jump in, Uliana, just to kind of add on, we do actually have a part of that being covered in the presentation. There's a couple of slides that Uliana will cover the question that you've raised, Mr. Badami, in terms of how does the skill level vary depending on your age and proficiency in a particular subject, right? You could be a practitioner for many, many years, but still be absolutely new to certain areas. One of the examples which I think all the participants might relate to would be e-commerce. The younger generation uses e-commerce a lot more. They're not as proficient with it in terms of some of the elderly people. But when it comes to as a professional, as a finance professional, what does it mean? The skills that you need to understand this overall sector, it is something that cuts across borders. So you need to know taxation laws and many other pieces which are not just for your country or the region that you're working in, but an extended area as well. So it is in terms of the international market or local market, which is now getting tapped into international market or vice versa, you as a finance professional just need to know about many, many areas for you to engage actively in a conversation, perhaps be very, very good at the work that you're doing, and also be open to the new avenues that that jobs might throw up in the future. So just we'll leave that at that, and let Uliana talk a little bit about some of the areas that she'll cover in the slides.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we're headed that direction. But I wanted to for us to answer the question on how do we think Pakistan is doing on these skills. So this is analysis from our global skills index, the same report that I show you the scatter plot graphs at the beginning of my conversation. And this is when we benchmark the proficiency of learners from Pakistan compared to learners from other countries in the world, along this 4 different metrics. So countries that are lagging, emerging, competitive, and cutting edge on these different skills. And we see that Pakistan, according to this analysis, is leading in skills for sales, and this is with beta on learners on our platform, and has an opportunity to improve in the rankings on other skills in the technology and the data field. So across, like, a few examples of these are software engineering, operating system, database management in the technology field, and in the data field, things like statistical programming, data visualization. And so this represents only a proportion of learners in the country, but a large amount of them that are Coursera. So we think this is an important message. But it's not I don't want you to think of it from a negative point of view, but from a positive point of view. It's an opportunity, right? Indeed, Pakistan can do better if we look at this index relative to developing countries as well as developed countries as well as some developing countries. So it trails behind others like Indonesia and Vietnam. However, this is a really good opportunity for professionals to upskill, to take basically the destiny in their own hands, to have with the clarity of where the world of work is going and where the profession is going. And now with one of the advantages that technology has extended access to learning opportunities online in a format that is more digestible, stackable, convenient, and affordable, and that can adjust to different learning styles, to take advantage of those learning opportunities, to develop their own learning journeys and develop their own learning pathways to get the skills that will not only improve this index, but give them very tangible benefits in the labor market and in their day-to-day opportunities, right? And this will continue to, every day is a new opportunity because, you know, the world of work is evolving so rapidly now that we are not expected to remain in our own profession for a very long time, but we'll have to swap many times. And so we have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves often. And this is a slide that Tarun was alluding to. So would like to leave you with this example of a learning journey that complements the previous conversation we were having. So we've discussed what are the changes that are expected in the labor market, what are the benefits of upskilling, and why is it important to upskill? But this is an example of how you can upskill. So in the job description that we can expect of a professional in the accounting and finance field in the future, we think it's very important to have a combination of the following skills. So core skills in this field like budgeting, financial statements, risk analysis, these are all things that you know. But these need to be constantly refreshed and be kept up to date and complemented with skills in emerging technologies. So how cryptocurrencies are impacting financial services industry, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. And we all need to be able to understand those impacts and be able to navigate in companies where these technologies are increasingly penetrating our day-to-day tasks. Then we need to complement these with data skills, things we've discussed like analytics, visualization, reporting, storytelling, as well as business skills, because the more we pivot away from the core accounting fields, we need to speak the language of business and interact with traditional business leaders to take these insights, complement them with from data, complement it with our perspective on finance and accounting to drive operations, strategy, and business model reinvention. And for all of this, it's very important, and we really like to emphasize this at Coursera, that we build our skill set on what we call the human skills. Our ability to communicate, our ability to negotiate, our ability to work in teams, our ability to be resilient and learn how to learn to keep our skill set fresh over time. Because guaranteed in the next 5 years, you'll need to continue learning because things will continue to change. And so on the right side of the slide, you have a sample of learning journeys for students, and there's a time for everything. So for students, you still need to emphasize the core skills that are fundamental to the accounting profession, and you can complement the application of these skill set with hands-on learning. And at Coursera, we also have something called our guided projects, which is a learning experience with which you can, in real time, practice on, quantitative tools like Excel or Tableau. How do you apply this analysis in the context of these data tools? And so we have this hands-on learning experiences that allow for that immediate practice in the context of a course. But then as you advance in the profession, you need to complement that learning experience with with emerging skills like cryptocurrency and blockchain. We've discussed that. And you can also add on industry certifications that give you another type of credential that take you deeper into a specific field, and that can open doors, because as we know now, credentials are very important in the eyes of employers. And so you can, complement the traditional undergraduate degree, for example, with the certification on data analytics and project management, consistent with the presentation we saw today, and really give an edge to your professional profile. So I want to stop here, being mindful of time, allowing for more questions, reactions, and if anything, I hope to have left you inspired to continue to learn and eager to develop your own learning journey and keep this up throughout your professional life, because it is an exciting world we're living. There's no time to get bored now in our jobs, and there's all this great excuses to engage with a platform like Coursera, where we can create this type of learning journeys for you, and our technology will be able to recommend you courses that are relevant to you and to show you the pathway so that you can make meaning of it in your day-to-day job. So thank you so much, and I'd love to hear if there's any questions or any reactions to my presentation today.
Great. We'd like to have some questions from you guys. Please feel free to write your queries, question that you want to ask from you, Elena.
There is a question in the Q&A section that I'm going to read out. This is from 𝗧𝗵𝗶 His question is a role of data analysis in generating growth and bottom line profit. Well, this is a very specific question. I can take a first stab at it and would kind of give you a little bit of direction. When you talk about any company's growth or impacting the bottom line, we're essentially talking about multiple pieces: deep understanding of business, understanding of finance, and whatever the area of the core business is, just understanding that, understanding your customers, the sales process. So there are multiple threads that actually come out, and each of those threads is generating a lot of data which are interconnected. So whether it is tools that you're tracking that data from, or connecting the dots and making sense of it in terms of how do I grow the business, or what is it my customers want, whether it is supply chain or understanding of the product, pricing, any of those areas, data analysis plays a very, very important role in first tracking what is happening and therefore making changes, developing data models, and so on and so forth. So many of the courses that we have could be entry-level courses that you could use to just understand each of those areas if that is not your core competency, and see how you would want to put that into your business and grow the business in that direction. So that's one question that essentially has a lot of answers depending on what kind of business. But essential point is there are different tracks that you can pick, and there are courses that you can learn if essentially that's not your core skill, and add to it. In terms of, I hope that that gives you at least a direction, and Uliana, please feel free to add on.
No, I think you've answered really well, and thank you for that. And I'm just being mindful of time, Mr. Badami. We've come to the top of the hour, but if you would like us to address one additional question, we're happy to stay a couple more minutes. Otherwise, we follow your direction.
I think we can take a couple of more questions if you're available. So I think we have a question here on Facebook page that how we can learn new skills while doing CA, because when we are doing CA, we don't have that kind of much time to learn new skills. So how we can tackle with this problem? So
I'll offer a quick answer to that. That's a problem that we all face, right? Whether you're taking the CA or whether you're we're at Coursera with the day-to-day pressures of a job or a CEO. Really, there's not enough time in our day-to-day to take on to devote to learning the way we would like us to do. But if anything I've learned now working at Coursera is that we can make it happen. I mean, there is not really magical solution, but if we understand how important this is for us, we will make sure that even if we devote, say, half an hour every day or 1 hour, and we establish a daily schedule, we're able to slowly but surely build up our progression and not wait until we finish whatever it is that we're focused on, because we will always have something to draw our attention. And I would really like to emphasize, I wish I could give you the magic formula, but unfortunately, I think there's not one formula that applies for all. I think it's up to us depending on our day-to-day and our learning style. But the main thing is, how could we weave it in, even if it's a little bit every day, so that we develop the habit of learning throughout our lives.
And just on a lighter note, you might want to start with your time management course that we have on Coursera.
That's right. And I think one thing which is very important that you also mentioned in your slide, that for students, you also have those core skills that you need to take. So that is something that you also need to, that's going to be part of your arsenal of skills that you have to take. So course, when you are doing CA, you're also taking those core skills. And at the same time, you will get some time after the exams, or probably, there are some periods that you will get always. So you can take those, like you don't have, if you don't have time for like 20 hours or 50-hour course courses, so you can take a 2-hour course. There are lots of courses available on Coursera, and I've been a fan of Coursera. I've been taking these courses for the last, I think, 5-6 years now, and these are amazing courses. These are amazing courses, amazing learning opportunities available for everybody everywhere, right? So yeah, Mr. Talha has said, Mr. Badami, is it okay to take a voluntary break before going to articleship to acquire these skills and then applying for firm? So it's basically, so Talha, I know one person who has taken a 6 months break, but not for acquiring new skills, but just exploring probably the northern part of Pakistan. So yeah, you can take a break, but of course you have to see if you can get into a good firm after a break. So that dynamic should not change for you. See, yeah. So we have a couple of questions. If you have more questions, please type in the comment section or in this group chat. Any commercial arrangement for ICAP members? We've been engaged with Coursera for the last, I think it's been 1.5 months, talking to Mr. Nallu, and we're trying to come up with an arrangement for ICAP members, and definitely it's going to be very good for the ICAP members to have to have an arrangement with Coursera, so that they can get those certificates, those approved certificates from those big universities and those big corporations. So we have courses in Coursera from Google and IBM. I think Mr. Nallu would be better to respond to this. That there are courses from big industry corporations, and those corporations who have actually done some groundwork, some groundbreaking work in those areas. So yeah, we're looking for an arrangement, and definitely we'll let you know how that arrangement will shape up.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Badami. We are actively engaged in that conversation. The universities and the corporates that Mr. Badami is referring to, we have about 150 plus top-notch universities across the world, and about 50 plus organizations who have put up their content on Coursera. All of them come with e-certifications. So at the end of the course, you can download these certificates, and those are credentials that are recognized widely. So in the context of our conversation, just a couple of pieces I wanted to leave all of you with. One is the whole course of CA is extremely demanding. So the one thing you learn throughout the course is the discipline. And when you are a disciplined learner, investing into your own learning journey is but natural. You'll make time for it. So in that context, I'm absolutely 100% sure that once this arrangement comes through, with or without that, you would continue to learn and be a lifelong learner. And we'll just try and see how we can make your life a lot easier.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Nallu. We would definitely like to engage with Coursera at the organizational level to bring all those benefits to our students and members. So What tech skills is required for senior finance professionals? I think this is covered. This is already covered. No. Can you give us a link? Mr. Asif has asked this question. Can you give us a link so that we can connect subsequently and select a course on data analytics?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Can you give us a link so that we can connect subsequently and select a course on data analytics?
Yeah, we can provide it after the session. If you agree with that, we're happy to share some of this material with a few links with which all participants can see the learning opportunities that are available to them through Coursera and can engage in this learning journey that I described in my final slide so that they can start taking action immediately. I hope I've left everyone really motivated to start today, tomorrow, because it would be late for you, but.
Absolutely. And just to add on to it, like I said, we are actively engaged with Mr. Badami and team. So intent is please do look for interesting news coming your way sometime in the next week. I know this is a festival week, so I just take this opportunity to also wish all of you an absolute Ramzan Mubarak. Take time and be well with your families and take care of yourself. Any questions that we have not answered on the chat, we will try and get those questions come our way and we'll provide a written answer in due course of time. So allow us that. I'm just conscious of time and we will address all your questions, if not on the live session.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Mr. Tarannalu, for being with us, Ms. Juliana, for this wonderful presentation, Mrs. Ruchira, from this Coursera team. It was a pleasure to have you and to listen from you and to get this inspiration that we should begin learning not from tomorrow, but today.
Exactly. That should be better said. Today, not tomorrow. So this evening you can enroll in your first course. There's no time to lose.
And Asif, you were looking for a link. I would just suggest you just go to the browser, type coursera.org, and then look for all those courses that you already have on data analytics, and you will find some amazing things. Not just data analytics, but amazing things. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your participation today for the audience, and thank you, Mr. Badami, for inviting us to have this conversation and to convey our messages to the audience. And we'll be happy to stay engaged with the audience as they develop their learning journey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
We would definitely like to have you once again as well.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.